Good evening, my name's Caroline Carter, the Wellbeing Practitioner at Carers in Bedfordshire, and today is session 5 of Managing Challenging Behaviour with Primary School aged children. So far we've looked at learning about your child and their behaviour, enhancing your relationship and supporting children's communication, building self-esteem and improving behaviour, the importance of routine and boundaries, and today we're going to look at reducing problematic behaviour through withdrawing attention. And then next week we'll look at supporting emotional regulation through calm time. So today, to cover reducing problematic behaviour through withdrawing attention, we're going to look at our normal working together agreement, having a bit of a check-in, thinking about what's working, thinking about why withdraw attention, thinking about your own child's problematic behaviours, thinking about how to withdraw attention effectively, and then kind of doing some feedback at the end. So for kind of tonight's session, we're not going to have so much of as a back and forth, but just kind of when we kind of asking the questions, generally just give the video a pause and think about kind of what is working for you or answering the questions. Might be helpful to have a bit of paper to write things down for kind of seeing how things go. So the normal kind of working together agreement is as usual. Obviously anything that's kind of said on the sessions to keep confidential, but we're just filming with a little participation today, so there won't be as much things that you could share. So let's have a think now about how your past week has been. Think about maybe what has been going well, what has not been going well, and kind of what do you remember from session 4 about the routines and boundaries. So you're looking at kind of assessing family rules, how we can ask our children to do things in a kind of promoting a pro-social approach, as in using positive language instead of saying no or don't do this, kind of explain to them the behaviours that we want to see and how that can help with kind of following through instructions. And also thinking about the words that we're using, thinking about kind of how long our requests are, all those sorts of things that might be quite helpful for your child or children at home. So this is our normal helpful techniques triangle, and as always kind of we want to use the ones at the bottom the most frequently and the ones near the top as a more of a last resort or when the others aren't working. So we've covered positive attention, empathy and special time, which is the ones we want to be using on a day-to-day basis, often multiple times a day, if not all the time where possible. And then it's clear boundaries, rewards, praises and encouragement. And then today kind of looking at ignoring, and which is withdrawing attention, and distracting and redirecting. And then next week we'll be looking at calm time and consequences. So yeah, again, thinking about now, so what's working for you and your families. So as we've kind of said before, every family is entirely different. We might have different rules, we might have different ways that we structure things, kind of even just families might look differently. And because of that, not every technique works for every family, and that's okay. What works for one family might kind of be an entire miss for another's, or you might be kind of able to share kind of tips and techniques with each other that does work for you, and that's great as well. But kind of thinking about what's working, or even kind of what's not working and maybe why it's not working, is really important. So withdrawing attention, we're going to have to think about why would we withdraw attention. So withdrawing attention often can be called a selective ignoring. It gives our children and ourselves an opportunity to emotionally regulate. Being able to emotionally regulate is really, really important, and it's something that we have become able to do as adults over time. And even for us, it can be really hard in the heat of the moment. We say things or do things that we regret just because we're not able to regulate our emotions. So taking that time to step away, kind of turn your attention away from the situation at hand, gives both you and your child an opportunity to try and calm down and understand how you're feeling, and kind of come back to the situation with kind of a fresher eyes and maybe a more kind of proactive approach. It's also a non-violent form of behaviour management. Kind of just withdrawing our attention is just kind of completely removing ourselves from the situation, kind of avoids anything escalating from both child or parent or carer or anyone involved. And also kind of children thrive on attention, which we've kind of done before, through special time, kind of positive praise, all those sorts of things. So when that attention is removed, It can sometimes for children can be quite shocking. We're not doing it to harm the child, and withdrawing attention is for kind of a short period of time, but just to kind of help children make the link that doing a particular behaviour isn't an appropriate way to get attention. So we're not going to shout and swear at people to get their attention, because that's what they make the links with. If I do this thing, then I get attention. But we want them to make them understand that this challenging behaviour or inappropriate behaviour or rule breaking isn't appropriate, and if they do that, they won't get your attention, which is what they want. So we looked at this attention table kind of way back in the earlier sessions, and we're going to be looking at this section here of ignoring not okay child behaviour by using no carer attention to hopefully kind of see that negative behaviour decrease. So before we looked at this praise bit where we were giving attention to the okay behaviour, but now we're going to be looking at what do we do about the not okay behaviour. So have a think here about a vending machine. So you can maybe have a vending machine at your gym, at your work, kind of at your child's swimming lessons, anything like that. And the first time that you go and put your pound coin in for your can of Coke, you put it in, the Coke comes out straight away, absolutely fine. So the next time that you go, you put your pound coin in, your Coke falls and it gets stuck. So you wait a bit, and then maybe you kind of give it a bit of a bash, and the can of Coke falls down, and you're like, great, got it. So the next time you go, the third time, you're going to remember from the second time that, oh, I had to give it a bit of a push, and then the can of Coke will come out. But you kind of put your pound in, can of Coke falls a bit, you give it a bash, but it doesn't move this time. So maybe you give it a couple of bashes, and then after kind of a bit more of a forceful approach, the can of Coke falls. So when you then go back for the fourth time, kind of thinking about what is your approach going to be, kind of realistically from what you've learned kind of the more forceful that you are, or the more kind of physical exertion you put into it, that kind of Coke's going to come quicker. And that's often what it's like with children's challenging behaviour. We see that challenging behaviour increase often as parents, as carers. When the children's behaviour gets too much for us, we can just be like, oh, that's absolutely fine, I don't care anymore, just have your iPad. And we can often kind of give in because we're tired, we're frustrated, and that's absolutely okay. We've all been there. But from the child's perspective, they learn, oh, if I keep pushing, I'm going to get that can of Coke, I'm going to get that end result. It's just going to take a bit more of me tantruming, or a bit more of whatever I was doing in the first place to get that little bit of attention. And that's how we want to kind of withdraw attention, because if that first time that you went to put your pound in to get that Coke and it didn't come out at all, whether you pushed it, shoved it, kind of bashed on the glass, anything, you just probably wouldn't use that machine again. You wouldn't bother. So you kind of withdrawing that attention, not giving into that challenging behaviour, kind of doesn't show your child that behaviour gets results, if that makes sense. And hopefully that's been a helpful analogy for you. Having a thinking about now, what is your experience of attention withdrawal? Have you tried it before? Has it worked? Has it not worked? And thinking about at the moment for you what doesn't work. So it might be that you've tried withdrawing attention before, but you're in a public place. It can be really embarrassing, it can be really frustrating, you're exhausted yourself, and then you kind of end up not being able to kind of keep going withdrawing attention, or your child doesn't respond to it very well. Or for sometimes people can think if we withdraw attention from the negative behaviours, we're teaching our child that behaviour is okay, but actually it's actually more shocking for children. A lot of parents I've spoke to who maybe have children who have sworn or have tantrums, they start doing that, they sit on the floor with them, or they get their phone out and start playing a game, and the child actually kind of be stunned and quite shocked and thinks, oh, what is that parent, that carer doing? They don't normally react this way. And they can actually then be like, oh, what are you doing? And they can bring themselves down quite quickly. But for you might have an entirely different experience. So having a think kind of what is and isn't working for you at the moment. And then once you've had a chance to think of kind of what is and isn't working and kind of attention withdrawal before, thinking about behaviours that you would like to see less of. So is there any particular behaviours that your child is displaying at home, at school, when you're out in public, that you kind of would like to see a bit less of? And what's really important to state with withdrawing attention or selective ignoring, whatever you would like to call it, is we use this when the behaviours aren't dangerous. So sometimes our children can be doing dangerous activities. For example, if they were kind of climbing on a table or a high surface, or they were picking up kind of a power tool or something they shouldn't be playing with, then obviously selective ignoring isn't going to work there. We need to intervene to keep them safe. Or for example, if they may be physically fighting with siblings, we actually need to intervene to separate. Sometimes they can sort these problems out, but you're the expert on your family situation, you're the expert on your child, you'll kind of know if that situation is safe for you to kind of leave them. And I'm not necessarily saying kind of completely leave the room. It might just be kind of turning your back on them, kind of moving to a different area of the room. It might just be standing in the doorway or standing in another room, but you can actually still see them. Obviously, depending on how old the child is, kind of, you know, the distance that you can leave them. So sometimes it's just turning away, sometimes it's just going quiet, sometimes it's getting your phone out, or sometimes it is maybe taking yourself off into the garden and leaving them in the house with another adult or another person in the house with them. And like I kind of said before, withdrawing attention or provides that space for emotionally regulating, and often our children learn through behaviour. And we kind of have in the picture here, you kind of have the do as I do approach. Our children kind of mimic a lot. They see the behaviours that we do at home and they learn a lot from us. So if we're able to model how to emotionally regulate, to set boundaries for ourselves, that we're not going to take verbal abuse, physical abuse of any sort, even from our children. If we model that, then our children know that that behaviour isn't okay. They know that they won't accept that from other people as well. So it kind of helps with their boundary setting. It helps them to learn to take some time away or kind of have alone time to quieten down and emotionally regulate those kind of their thoughts and feelings and behaviours, and kind of have a think about what they're doing or what's going on for them. So kind of thinking about now, how can we withdraw attention effectively? So we want to withdraw attention effectively immediately and in response to behaviour. So we're not using it as a consequence, kind of, oh, you were really naughty yesterday, so I'm not going to pay attention to you today. It's not like that. It's when we see a kind of a specific type of challenging behaviour or a specific behaviour that's maybe kind of against our family rules or anything like that, we want to kind of immediately withdraw our attention. And we want it to be brief and proportionate. So if they're kind of swearing, we're not then kind of ignoring them for an hour because they've said one swear word. We want it to be kind of brief until that behaviour has stopped. And as soon as that behaviour stopped, we provide positive attention again and praise. So we say things like, well done for being able to calm down, or I really appreciate you using your calms words instead of those other words. Well done for kind of being able to kind of emotionally regulate if they're able to understand that language, or saying well done for being able to calm down, or I really like how you're sitting really nicely at the table now. And kind of providing that positive attention, rather than saying, oh, I'm really pleased that you've stopped throwing your food, kind of saying, oh, well done, you're sitting nicely, I really like how you're holding your knife and fork, thank you for sharing with your sibling, anything like that. Sorry. Yeah, so we want to provide a positive attention and praise as soon as that behaviour that we've been ignoring or withdrawing attention from has stopped, just so that it's proportionate. We're not, like I said before, we're not using withdrawing attention as a consequence, because children do need attention, but in response to those specific behaviours. So what should we do whilst we're withdrawing attention? And this can be for both you and your child. So you can do breathing techniques, kind of breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, taking really slow, deep breaths. Doing things like box breathing can help, so you can teach your child this, or even kind of do it yourself, but you find somewhere that's a square or rectangle, so kind of all of us now will be looking at screens, so that's a kind of a really obvious one, but phones, iPads, tables, all sorts are rectangular. And I'm just going to use like this little box that I'm in now, but you start at one corner and you breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Or you can do it a bit longer and you're kind of breathing in, hold it, breathing out, hold it, breathing in, hold it, breathing out. Or you can either doing it in a figure of 4, depending on the age of your child as well. You'll kind of know what helps and kind of how they're able to hold their breath. But you can breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4, and then breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4. So kind of doing it with a square can kind of help, because you can draw that around a particular shape, or you can kind of do it on the palm of your hand or on a table or anything like that. And we can withdraw attention by leaving the room or turning away, again, depending on the age and the ability of our child and how safe the situation is. We might just be able to turn away, get our phone out of our pocket and play a game, send a text message. We might just kind of leave the room and go stand somewhere else, kind of going out to the garden, just depending kind of what feels safe. And also it depends, you might find it helpful to stay still, to sit in a particular spot, or you might want to keep moving. You might want to kind of do a couple of laps around the garden, walk up and down the stairs. And the same might be for your child. They might feel okay kind of sitting still, practicing their breathing, or they might need to keep moving. They might need to go and run around the garden, or jump on the trampoline, or do something physical, like play with Play-Doh and do something malleable, just to kind of get those physical energies out. Also, one other thing that you can do while drawing attention, just distraction. If we're kind of seeing that the behaviour often increases before it decreases, so it might be appropriate just to distract them, try and get something else to focus their attention on. Maybe they're often we get more frustrated or more irritable when we are hungry or thirsty, so having a drink or a snack, a cup of tea, just going to the kitchen and pouring yourself a cup of water and having a sip, kind of taking ourselves away for that small task, can really help us calm down. And also positive self-talk. So that might be something that we say to ourselves, like, I can do this, it's going to be okay, it'll be over soon, I just need to kind of keep at it. Or kind of encouraging our children to be able to be like, okay, I feel angry at the moment, but I know what I can do, and thinking about the techniques that they use at home that help them calm them down. And so this kind of week for home practice, there's practice withdrawing attention from the non-dangerous problematic behaviours. So think about those behaviours that you want to see less of, and think about ways that you can withdraw attention, whether it's kind of teaching your child any of these kind of techniques so they're able to emotionally regulate, or using these techniques yourself to better emotionally regulate your own reaction to challenging behaviours. And again, I'll reiterate, we want to kind of withdraw attention or selectively ignore the non-dangerous problematic behaviours. Obviously, there will be some behaviours that we have to intervene if we think our safety or our child's safety or another person's safety is involved. But yes, have a think now, kind of how are you feeling for this week? Think about how you're doing for the group goal of learning more about challenging behaviour and different ways to help manage your child's behaviour. And think about your own personal goal. How are you getting on with that? And then next week, we'll be looking at supporting emotional regulation through calm time. Thank you for joining this evening.